YouTube Ozzico and the Goat House is back. And just before going to record this video, Kevin Byard, the Titan safety, was traded to the Eagles, a star Titans player to the Eagles. Heard that one before. For a fifth, a sixth, and Terrell Edmonds. So pretty damn good deal for the Eagles there. But this video is supposed to be about a bunch of rumors, not just the made-up rumors, not just fan rumors, legit rumors, what I'm hearing. I get my own input in there as well. And we're going to talk about the Titans receiving calls in Byard, and then the Eagles potentially looking for a starting safety. We're kind of connecting the dots why Byard and the Eagles is on the thumbnail before the trade happened. So pretty funny that it happened here, but still a lot to go over in this video. We have two recent trade deadline videos, move for every NFL team, and then a 15 trade scenarios video. More to come. Grades after it all happens. I'm excited. We have weekly coverage as well. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter. We're always talking with you. We already talked about Kevin Byard trade on Twitter. We'll talk more there. So all the news and rumors on there. Link pinned in the comments for our Twitter. Anything else you're looking for? GLD shop giveaway. Have the Eagles chain on from the GLD shop. They have all jewelry like this. Code GOAT for 33% off. Liquid IV, code GOAT. You guys know the drill. So I had the graphics already whipped up for this. The Titans were receiving calls in Kevin Byard, so that was legit. But real quick on the Titans and Eagles, since this kind of already happened, but no action on Henry. I think the Titans would be open to moving Henry, actually, for the right price, but not really getting much calls based on the latest we've heard. And then other guys that we haven't really heard their names specifically, but I could see them selling DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Fulton, who had one really good year, but now kind of falling off. Danico Autry has been great for the Titans, but could they move on from him? Jim Schwartz and the Browns pops up when thinking about that. And then here's the Eagles rumor graphic that I had looking at a DB, adding a DB. And we've heard that. That was a legit rumor. And I thought it was funny that everyone's mentioning, Jalen Johnson, like starting corner. And I'm sitting here saying, I've been saying it too. I don't know if they'll add a starting corner because they want Darius Slay and James Bradbury, legit starting corners, to be the starting outside corners. They need depth in case of injury, or they could use a starter in the slot. But where they could use a starter is at safety because they're a little thin at safety because of talent and because of injuries. So that's why I had in the graphic starting safety and or cornerback depth more so than the starting flipped, which people have been talking about. So I was on to something there, and had Eagles Titans back-to-back in this video because I thought Kevin Byard, because I don't think Justin Simmons is getting traded. Budda Baker wouldn't make much sense. It's almost like a versatile C.J. Gardner-Johnson, which they didn't really view. He's a little different, but they didn't really view it like that working in the Desai defense. So I thought Kevin Byard actually made the most sense. Not that I was actually saying it would happen, and if I did predict it to happen, I would have predicted for like a third or a fourth round pick, fifth, sixth, Terrell Edmonds. So a longer list of stuff. But less. Yeah, fifth, sixth, Terrell Edmonds. The Eagles are short on picks this year. Is the only downside. I'm sure they'll be able to recoup those. They get better. Kevin Byard's a stud. One of my favorite free safeties in football for some time because he's fantastic. So Eagles get a lot better with that trade. It's pretty sad for the Titans, to be honest. He's moving on from these star players. So if we'll grade it on Twitter, but it's gonna be an A for the Eagles. A plus maybe. They gave up three things, but they're low things. And the Titans, helps with the rebuild since they're heading that direction. Sheds cap space this year and next year, so those are the positives. But Edmonds on an expiring deal. I guess you get a look at him. I'm not gonna fail them, but I don't really love the deal. Like low C is the maximum. Could it be in the D range? We'll talk more on Twitter, but I thought it was funny that we were gonna talk a little bit about that in this video. And we were talking on Twitter right when it happened. I was like, no way. And I posted the thumbnail instantly on Twitter because I was literally sitting right here about to record, like not even kidding, on my mother, but we weren't actually predicting it to specifically happen. So we won't take, really credit there, but interesting stuff. On to the actual rumors. We're going to talk about a list of teams here. Commanders, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, they've kind of been thrown out there maybe by a little bit by media, by fans, but it's actually legit now. Deanna Rossini said that basically what she is gathering is that one of these guys very well could be traded. The way she put it was almost like if she had to put money, she didn't say this exactly, but the way I gathered it, the way she said it was like if she had to put money on it, she didn't use the word money, but one will be traded. Like chances are one could be dealt, but they don't want to deal both, but whatever one maybe brings in the best offer. because expiring deals, maybe a little bit underwhelming, but both talented players with upside. But they aren't just going to give them away either, though. Available for the right price. So we'll talk about, maybe we should talk about the Vikings and Danielle Hunter first, but we will talk about them and him. But that's kind of like the main pass rusher that's potentially available right now. And if he couldn't be had by a team, if the team can't get him, then maybe they go for one of these players. So you kind of look at those teams. You look at the Jags, the Ravens, the Falcons, the Niners kind of being brought up a little bit. They did trade for Randy Gregory. That doesn't really end their discussions with adding players. We'll talk about the Niners as well. So you want to throw out teams like that. Rams, another team. The Bears, since it's a young pass rusher, I don't know if they're in the business of right now of trading away picks, but since it's a young pass rusher they need for the future, then sure. What are they going to get for these guys? Hard to imagine they get a first. Definitely not for Sweat. For Young, if it's a very late first, team like the Niners maybe would do it. Maybe a team like the Jags would do it. I don't know if the Ravens would be in the business of trading a first-round pick. Second round plus for Chase Young, though, because he's got a lot of he's an expiring deal, though. He's had injuries. That's why I don't know about the first. I don't know. But if the Commanders, for them to get rid of him, it might take a little bit here. And Sweat, they like. He's a little hot and cold. Still has some more upside. Second round pick maximum, I'd say. But a third almost seems too cheap. So it kind of goes back to it. Like, these guys could be had, but for the right price. And they're probably not going to trade both. And the Commanders, they win a game, they lose a game, they go on a losing streak, they're a little sloppy, they still might need a quarterback, they need offensive linemen. Defensively, they got a good front, but it's pretty underwhelming elsewhere. I mean, they got good safeties, I suppose, but so they could be looking to, and Rivera could be gone after this year, so they could be looking to, I don't know if they want to tear it down and go to stage one of that rebuild, but they could be looking to gain picks and try to do a little bit of work. But I don't know if they've been killing the draft, really. They have an odd, and I've been saying that for years. I keep predicting who they're going to draft because I know how they think, and I don't really love it, to be honest, their approach to the draft. So I predicted Jamin Davis, them to take him, and I predicted Emmanuel Forbes, and not that I agreed with them fully, though, that just because I was predicting them, I thought they missed on some other player, taking some other players. So they almost decide things, what they're going to do before the draft, and I don't really agree with that. So but maybe that, they could be retooling, so they could be moving on from these guys. So we'll see. Basically what I gathered, before what I gathered from Rossini basically was, I don't know if teams will, I know teams will call. I don't know if they'll give up either one, but based what I gathered very recently from her is that, from what she said was that, one, it's very possible. One could be gone. One could be traded. So interesting stuff. We'll see who's in the market for those guys. We kind of mentioned some teams. The Browns looking to add specifically a receiver and offensive line, that they're calling around about that. So it's not, a silly rumor. They're calling around about that. Expect them to be active. They've been active. They're not afraid to make trades, multiple trades. They're looking to try to win right now. We'll see what they do with Deshaun Watson, though. But the rest of that team's pretty much equipped to win right now. But they're a little beat up on offensive line. Receiver, they got decent receivers. But, yeah, I was, what receivers could they be interested in? The obvious receivers that are available. I think Judy's brought up a bit, and I could see that with the Browns because he plays inside and outside, like equally effective. Does need to pick it up a little bit. But who do they have? They have Mari Cooper, who's more of an outside receiver. They have Donovan Peoples-Jones, who is an outside receiver. And they have Elijah Moore, who's like strictly a slot. So getting a guy that can do a bit of both and just elevating this team makes some sense. Like Renfro's strictly a slot, and they would rather have Elijah Moore in there. DeAndre Hopkins, you pretty much, you could get him and just Peoples-Jones just loses his job then, completely on the bench. Like, I guess then that's possible. And I think it would be the same for Sutton. I'm not predicting them to get Sutton. Judy's mainly the one to look for. Could they just get depth like a Terrace Marshall? KJ Osborne's name's been thrown around a bit, but I don't know if the Vikings deal with him with Jefferson out. Offensive line's tough because they are, and speaking of the Vikings, I guess an offensive lineman, if the Vikings were willing to move on from him, would be Ezra Cleveland. I think that would actually be a really good fit, and he could be strong depth at either guard or tackle and could start in the meantime while guys are out. So that's just popped in my head now, to be honest. But not a lot of offensive linemen available out there. Garrett Bowles has been mentioned to be available, but we'll see. Yeah, so I'm expecting at least a trade from the Browns. That's kind of the feeling, and just because what Barry's been doing with the moves he's been making. A sneaky target is a pass rusher for me, and it's the versatile pass rusher. That's the Nico Autry. Now, the Browns don't necessarily need that. They have maybe the best in football at Myles Garrett. I love Zadarius Smith. They have multiple guys that are pretty solid behind him, but behind those guys, obviously, and that could rotate in and play. But the Nico Autry he's one of the more underrated players of the last several years, probably. This is a ball player here. He's underrated probably because he's not like speedy. He doesn't really have the athleticism that you look for, but he can play defensive end. He can rush from hand in the dirt, standing up. He can play interior too. He's really good at 3 technique, so he can help you in multiple different ways. In the Brown, Zadarius Smith's a guy that has injuries pop up, so adding another guy and a guy that can just Zadarius Smith, you can move around a bit as well. He doesn't really line up inside with a hand in the dirt, but he'll stand up and almost like blitz from the inside at times in his career. So you can use all 3 of those guys or multiple guys. But big thing here is Jim Schwartz was with the Titans and was a hell of a coach on the Titans staff with the Nico Autry there, who's been great. So he knows firsthand how good Autry really is. And the Browns have a lot of spending money too. So we want to win right now or the next 2 years. Let's go get this guy, not just that one piece. So I definitely watch out for the Browns to be one of the more active teams. It might just be one trade. Who knows? It could be none, but expect them to be pretty active. I'm just trying to figure out who. We'll have more prediction videos, but we talked about guys. Judy could be the guy. If the Broncos are still willing to sell, we will see. Speaking of the Broncos, not supposed to be a fire sale, which at one point we thought so, and they just won yesterday against the Packers. A pretty impressive outing. The defense seems to be getting better. They clutched up, but still, are they going anywhere? But not really expected to be a fire sale. But they are listening. Like, they're open. They're not, like, shutting people down. Like, no, we will not trade this guy no matter what. They want the right offer. But we've listed guys in the past. I mean, the guys listed on the offensive side were guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Garrett Bowles, guys like that. And then defensively, Patrick Surtain, because of a big name, he's a big name. His name's been brought up a bit, but I've never expected him to get dealt. It sounds like they will listen, but it would have to be... I would put his value at 2 firsts, and that might not be enough. So and for them to like actually give up, and then fans always want to go like, that's not his value. They have to give him up for this. They don't have to give him up for anything. They might only would accept like 2 firsts and a second or something. That's a lot. So I'm not expecting Surtain to be traded, but DJ Jones could be dealt. I've heard he's actually a bigger name to watch, which I felt like I brought up before anybody did in somewhat of a recent video. I never heard his name brought up about being traded, and so from anyone else, but I brought him up because, but hasn't been that Niners guy, but he has been injured recently, but hasn't been that Niners DJ Jones, so he could be dealt. And then it was reported that they're more likely to trade defensive guys than offensive guys, and they're more likely to trade, if they're going to trade offensive guys, the receivers are brought up the most. They're more likely to trade Jeudy than Sutton, which makes sense to me as well because Sutton's been their best receiver. And Jeudy might be a little easier to trade because of contract and how young he is and how a rebuild team or a win now team could trade for him. So for both sides, multiple reasons, Jeudy could be that guy dealt. So I'm looking at Jeudy. I'm looking at DJ Jones, Josie Jewell. I mixed his first and last name together with both his first and I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. Jewell, I'm looking maybe possibly him to get traded as well. We'll see. We will see. Kareem Jackson, he's getting kicked out of games though, but we'll see. So, but I guess it's not supposed to be a fire sale though. So that's the big news for the Broncos as the deadline approaches. The Panthers could be buyers and sellers, which we kind of thought that as well in our recent scenarios and everything video. That they're looking for a receiver 1, even though them saying that's a little bit of a shot at Adam Thielen because he's been fantastic. But if you think about it, is Thielen going to be the receiver 1 for them for a very long time? Probably not. Probably not a very long time, but he's been fantastic. Kind of going back to where he started with Minnesota, like playing in the slot. So looking for like a number 1 outside receiver and a guy that's could be a number 1 outside right now, but for the future as well. So that makes sense. Judy's brought up with them a lot, but he's a mixture of outside and slot, so they could get him. They could, and just mainly play him outside. But Thielen plays so many snaps in the slot that it takes away snaps from the slot from Jeudy, and it's still to be determined if Jeudy can be like a full-time, like is he going to live up to potential as an outside receiver? That's a risky one. I thought Sutton made more sense, but the Broncos are less likely to trade him. Renfro doesn't make any sense because Thielen's already there. Doesn't make any sense to me. I see people bring that up, but I just don't see it. But, Hopkins, I think, you already have the aging Thielen, so, but he could fit on the outside. But I just don't see it there. So it's really looking at the Broncos guys that could be available, because we'll talk about Hollywood Brown. He's not going to be available. It doesn't sound like. We'll talk about that. But that's who they could be buying. So buy a receiver, sell. Dante Jackson's brought up a ton. It almost sounds like he will get traded. So that's a guy to watch. Terrace Marshall. I can't even talk right now. Seeking to trade. Could end up keeping him. It's possible. And then Burns is a question mark, because do you really want to trade Burns? Probably not. But if they're a rebuild team, and he could be part of the rebuild. I think that's the mistake fans make. They say, okay, this is a rebuild team. They need draft picks, so they have to trade their best asset, even no matter how young he is. Like, no, Burns can be part of a rebuild. Like, people don't realize that sometimes. But if they get, more than where they value him, or I guess exactly where they value him right now, then they could deal him. But they got rid of a big-time player in DJ Moore. Do they want to give up another big-time player in Brian Burns? They did one just so they can get that quarterback. You don't want to do another one to get. They don't have a first-round pick, though, and then this is to be their way to get a first-round pick in a team that probably needs a first-round pick. So we'll see. Definitely a big team to watch at the deadline here. Next, the Raiders also could be buyers and sellers, and we talked about that as well. We've had scenarios with them getting an edge rusher and a scenario with them trading Renfro, and that actually ends up being the case. So we were kind of on to something there, that they are looking into trading 4 edge rushers, and they are shopping Hunter Renfro. Hunter Renfro could be going for really cheap, probably, since he hasn't really been playing, and they're pushing him out, it sounds like. And edge rusher, if they want to go big, Daniil Hunter's been talked about, Chase Young, Montez Sweat, Brian Burns. Those guys are the big guys. I don't know if I get the sense they want to trade like a premium pick. I guess, Montez Sweat maybe won't be a premium pick, so maybe that's a guy to watch. But maybe like the step down, like we've talked about Carl Lawson, Danico Autry from the Titans could make some sense. Players like that. So, and then Renfro, where could he land? We'll see. I thought the Titans made sense, but they could be in that selling mode right now, given the Byard trade and some other guys popping up. They're open to trading a lot of guys. So I don't know if that would really help them, unless it's just dirt cheap, which it could be. But, a number of teams could be interested if he's really cheap. So we'll see. So Raiders, another team definitely to watch there. Next, the Cardinals, likely not trading Hollywood Brown, which I was kind of leaning towards too. Like, I don't know, because he's their best receiver right now. Why would they want to, trade him? I know they're in rebuild, but he can be part of that. They're going to value him. But the main thing is Kyler Murray's about to come back, and they want Hollywood Brown there with Kyler Murray there. Like, they want to see if those guys work, if Murray works, and have his number one receiver out there, in this new system. So it wouldn't make a ton of, for multiple reasons, it wouldn't make a ton of sense to trade him. But they have received multiple offers, so that's news. Like, there's offers out there. Teams are interested, which isn't really a surprise. He's playing pretty well this year, and there's some teams desperate for receivers. I could see them selling nothing based on what I'm hearing, or less than expected. I think people going into the deadline were like, all right, sellers, Panthers, Broncos, the Cardinals. Cardinals got to sell, so you expect them to trade. Some people probably expect them to trade Hollywood. I really didn't. So now don't expect that. But, say a week ago, some people said maybe Hollywood, Zach Ertz, which I do think Ertz is a possibility. Some people may have said Budda Baker. It was a number of guys, obviously, there. So people, basically what that says is they are going to be sellers. They're going to trade at least a guy or multiple guys. But now I can see a scenario where nothing, or maybe just one trade. I'm not really expecting, anywhere near a fire. Either fire sales where you're trading like 3-4 guys, I think. I don't think anywhere near a fire sale for the Cardinals, so which some may be expected. So we'll see. So maybe a little quieter than expected there. It's a little underwhelming, but we'll never know. A ton of interest in Daniil Hunter. Like we've heard Chase Young and Montez Sweat's name come up, but we haven't heard that like teams are for sure like calling on them and Burns, the same thing. Like, we know teams will be interested, but we haven't heard like this team, that team, that team. Like, multiple teams are trying to trade for him, but a guy that we know several teams are interested trying to trade for him is Danielle Hunter. What is weird though, we don't know the specific teams. We have an idea. Some logical people, smart people around the league are throwing out some team names, but they aren't actually saying like, yes, this team called. They're kind of assumptions, and we've listed the teams in the past too: Ravens, Jags, Falcons, Raiders could be one now, Rams could be one. So teams like that. But the Vikings are getting offers. It sounds like they've yet to receive a good enough offer. That's what Rossini said. She said they haven't really seen a good enough offer, so they're kind of just listening to calls. And then Rappaport said he could be Roquan Smith this year. Like, he can be that big defensive player traded, so he made it sound like a trade could be coming. And then a very good Minnesota reporter that I definitely trust, Ben Gosling, is saying that the Vikings aren't like actively shopping him. But all three reporters can be true. So Rossini's saying they've gotten calls and they haven't received a good enough offer. Gosling is saying that they're not actually shopping him. Doesn't mean they won't trade him. It means they're not, hey, pick up the phone. You want Hunter? This is his price. They're just taking in calls right now. So they're not actually pushing him out or anything like that. They need a good enough offer, and they haven't quite got that yet. But it makes sense. Teams are going to call, and they're going to offer what they feel comfortable first. Everyone probably should lowball at first. I don't blame teams for lowballing. Fans get all worked up that teams are asking for this or teams are doing this, but it's smart. It's smart. So it makes sense that there's not a good enough offer right now, but that things could change. The Vikings play tonight, Monday Night Football. They lose another game. Will they just be willing to accept the best offer out there? Or as you get closer to the deadline, does the team go, okay, we need this guy. Vikings aren't budging. Let's trade a little bit more. More of a negotiation. Right now, it's kind of just offer and listen right now. Makes sense. So all of that could be true. It is true. Lot of interest, a lot of calls. Not a good enough offer yet. Not pushing him out. Could still deal him. The Vikings could be has another team. Like, I think brought up. People brought up like Sellers, Panthers, Broncos, Cardinals, Vikings were probably in there because they've had a disappointing season. And then guys being brought up the last month. Kirk Cousins, who probably not going to waive his trade. Like, he's probably not going to get traded. Very, very, very unlikely. We knew that. It's old news, though. Won't waive that no trade clause. Danielle Hunter's been brought up. Harrison Smith's been brought up. Jordan Hicks been brought up. KJ Osborne's been brought up. But Harrison Smith, maybe unlikely. They would probably need something more than what people would offer, and he's such like a cornerstone of this team. And then you got KJ Osborne, who they like, and a little bit cheaper of a receiver, and Jefferson injured, so they might be hesitant there unless it's a good enough deal. Then you have Jordan Hicks, who should be a guy that's available, but he's like their main blitzing linebacker and the most blitzed team in football, the team that blitzed most in football. And if they were Asamoah is a guy that has a lot of upside, but if they were confident with him stepping up, I think he'd already be playing. I think if he was even close to if they thought he was anywhere close to Hicks, I think they would have him and just develop him. So they don't really think they're close. They may think they need Hicks and they may want to extend him. And the same thing with Hunter. Davenport was a 1-year deal. He's constantly injured. They might go away. Well, we want Hunter for a long time, so they could be. They could make a big splash trade away, but they could be also quieter than people think too. They might be a little stubborn, I guess. And I don't blame any team for being stubborn. I know some fans get a little angry about that, but for not like giving away their player to their favorite team. But we'll see what happens. The Jags, the team that's most linked to Danielle Hunter, but it's mainly rumors for right now. It's not linked at, there's not official reports or news that the Jaguars have called about Danielle Hunter. None of that. There's none of that. But several teams have called. Some smart people. Actually, the guy that drafted Danielle Hunter, Rick Spielman, was the GM of the Vikings, and it was actually interviewing for a position on the Jaguars. I think that was last offseason or this, I can't remember, but I thought that would have been pretty good. I like Rick Spielman a lot, but he drafted Danielle Hunter, so it was a hit by him, and he's saying that the Jags make a lot of sense. Watch out for that, is what he's saying. So found that interesting, but he's not saying he heard for sure or anything like that. But yeah, being linked, I'm not talking about like fans and your basic media, but legit people are linking it, and they're a very good team, and they could use another pass rusher. Trayvon Walker is a raw prospect still. It makes sense that he's not great right now. It's okay, and it makes sense, but they could add somebody else in there with Josh Allen. So it is mainly rumors right now, but it makes sense. And Danielle Hunter also fits the prototype, because of what the Jags look for, because Hunter in college was not productive. He was like an upside guy, like really long, freaky athletic, freaky strong. You see the upside, so they went off that. That's kind of what the Jags do. Bulky, that's what he does, like what he looks for. So that, and also, he fits what they're looking for at the same time. I think the question is, well, first off, would they pay what the Vikings want for him? Number one. But they do have Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker. Are they gonna, number two, are they just gonna insist on Trayvon Walker right now? Like, they don't want to disrupt his development. Like they maybe go, we just want to start Josh Allen. They're gonna start Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker. So let's not do it. And then number three, which kind of goes into that, if you bring in Danielle Hunter, and the graphics guy, I forgot an L in his name, but if you bring in Danielle Hunter, so they would start Allen and Hunter. And then what if Hunter just elevates them, tears it up, right? Or if he's good and they want him back, and Josh Allen's been great, they want him back. You got 2 star pass rushers that you have to extend. It's pretty difficult to do. They could do both at the same time, but they spent a lot of money recently, last offseason, I guess we'll say. So they do have a little bit tied up. Everybody can clear space. It's not too difficult, but is it a rental, or does it make Josh Allen not a rental, but does it mean he's gone? So is it almost a competition, Hunter versus Allen? So it is a little bit more of a tricky situation. So for right now, this is rumors, but I don't really view them as like those silly rumors that, if you don't see a rumor in my video right now that you heard, I just view it as, and it could happen, but I just view it as like just fans coming up with shit and maybe some basic media, like just speculating. I'm not really too... And I'm going to trust, my opinions and then what I'm hearing from logical people mainly. But so we'll see what the Jags decide to do there. I guess what I'm saying is it's kind of a tough call there for the Jaguars. The Jets open to trading Carl Lawson and Dalvin Cook. So we've talked about that too. We actually included them in our most recent trade scenarios video. There's 15 trades in there. So we kind of saw that coming because they got multiple good players at both those positions, the edge position and the running back position. So they could possibly get some picks here. Are they going to be desperate for the picks? I think they did trade for Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if they're going to be desperate for picks. But maybe it would be more so, could they? I haven't heard anything about them being buyers, but I wonder if they can like trade guys away so they're able to be buyers at the same time. So could they be buyers and sellers? But yeah, I mean, these guys might go for really cheap though. So they might sit down and say, is it worth it? Like Lawson, a fifth round pick maximum, I'd say. Maybe expect a 6th. Could you do a 5th and a 7th swap? Possible. Cook could be a 6-7 swap, or I'd say a 6th round pick maximum, but he's been underwhelming, so I'd say like a 7th round pick or one of those swaps, like I said. But 2 players for the Jets to watch out for here. The Lions, this is kind of just speculation and rumors, but to me it makes sense, especially because the Ravens game. So before the Ravens game, it was kind of just like people saying, all right, Lions are really good and maybe just need one more piece. What could that be? It could be corner. And now it's a little bit more evident that they could really use a corner. But there's nothing like out there that, yes, the Lions are calling about corners. Nothing like that right now. It's just, I think, logical rumors here. So could be looking for a corner, but they are a team that kind of relies on development, which they develop well, they draft well. So it's understandable, but when you're this good and you want to take that next step, you don't want to get your ass beat to the Ravens. Like, go get better. Don't be afraid to be better. So let's see if they go and do that. They do have a little bit of spending money here too. So could they be looking for a corner? The main corner talked about in rumors was like Jalen Johnson. Would the Bears trade him to the Lions? That's to be determined. But I don't know if we'll talk about the Bears and Jalen Johnson as well. But I don't know if they're really pushing him out. They'll need the right price. I don't know if it doesn't really make sense for both sides in my opinion. So Dante Jackson's the guy I would watch for. Of the Panthers, I would definitely watch for a guy like him here. But then after that, Christian Fulton from the Titans, but he's a guy that might just be depth. Maybe they think they can get more out of him. Jalen Mills is a little bit of a hybrid defensive back, is a guy that could be available. I know people wanted them to, their team to get Patrick Surtain. I'm just not counting on that. So it's mainly rumors for right now. And then could they look for a running back? With Montgomery has missed games and is currently missing some games, and then Gibbs has missed games. And I think it'd be wise of them to have another physical back. Like last year, what was so important to them, Jamal Williams, guy that isn't every down back, but physical, can get that extra yard, get that touchdown. Dave Montgomery's been a star for them this year. Similar type of back, maybe a little bit more to his game. And Montgomery's been injured throughout his career and right now. So having a solid depth. I brought up another Bears player that I think maybe they could reach a deal. Deontay Foreman, but he's been great for the Bears the last 2 games. So do the Bears trade him? That'd be like a fit in my opinion. So I haven't really heard anything about them like for sure looking for into corner and for sure looking into running back. It's kind of just what makes sense right now. So we'll see what happens there with them. The Giants, no plans to trade Saquon. It sounds like he wants to be there, and the Giants want to keep him. He did have a costly fumble that almost cost him the game in that last game, but it's just a big part of that piece of that offense. So don't expect a Saquon trade, and likely, to be, another one of those teams we talked about. The Broncos, I would actually expect to make a trade, but people thought they'd be a fire sale team. People thought the Panthers would be a fire sale team. They might be better buyers and sellers. People thought the Cardinals would be a fire sale team. They might not do anything. They might do one thing. People thought the Vikings, they might do one thing. They might do nothing. The Giants on our team started very poorly. They just won a game. They're going to do less than expected. They might do absolutely nothing here with trading players away. So maybe don't expect too much from them. Paris Campbell's been rumored, but they might just keep him, kind of stash him a little bit, but we will see. That could be a guy, but we'll see. The Colts plans feel like they're changing here based on logic and based on what we're hearing, like legit stuff, not just rumors. But there were rumors at one point, and they were legit, that they could be buyers and mainly looking into Jerry Jeudy. They did call, but nothing really ever got serious. But could they? And they were sneaking off some wins early in the year. They were maybe a little bit better ahead of schedule, a little bit better than expected. But now, based on what I'm hearing, is things are kind of changing. Like the Jeudy thing never got serious, and they're actually, if anything, they'll be sellers. So maybe stay put, do nothing, or be sellers. Because they are they in position to be buyers? No, in my opinion, no. And they're starting to lose a little bit more here. So, who could they deal though? I'm almost expecting them to be very quiet. But could they deal Kenny Moore? Could they, they're gonna be really thin on corner, then they'd be kind of thrown in the towel. But I don't really expect any of those like huge names like Buckner. I wouldn't really expect that. But yeah, I don't know if there's a lot that's really stands out to me in terms of yes, they're gonna trade him. But what I heard, they could be going from kind of like not really being buyers, but calling around maybe being buyers to being like, if anything, sellers. I would almost expect them to be quiet just based on like they don't have a number of guys that I think, yes, they can trade him. They can trade him. There's guys they could trade. I mentioned Kenny Moore possibly, but yeah. Niners could make a splash move. That's really just rumors for now. But to me, it kind of does make sense because the Niners are in win now mode. They want to do anything to win. They want to finally win that Super Bowl. They've been very close to, somewhat close or very close to winning very recent years, I suppose. And they have a ton of spending money for this year. Of course, they can have that roll over and help them next year, or they can, make themselves even better of a team, or they can do a mixture of both. And it's a team that what stopped them short of winning it all, like injuries, health, and there's. Since last week, they're starting to get a little beat up already. It doesn't seem like anything major, but and you do wonder down the stretch of the season and in the playoffs, if they're trying to make a Super Bowl run. So go out there and get some guys. Got some guys that can play. So maybe it's not necessarily a splash move, but maybe look out for them to do something. But it is kind of just rumors for right now. But again, it makes sense for the reasons I explained, and they have a ton of cap to spend right now. Seems to be linked to an edge rusher. I got like a big time edge rusher. It's kind of go big or go home when it comes to that. But they did recently trade for Randy Gregory. I know it's like a smaller trade. They don't have a lot of they don't have to play him. They don't have like a lot of stock into him. So I guess that could mean they can do something else. But that you also could look at that trade and be like, yeah, they have Bosa, they have him, they have Drake Jackson. Other pieces that can play. So maybe not. Receiver's a possibility because you got Brandon Ayuk, who's a stud. You have Debo, who's a stud, but he's constantly got something popping up. And do they have like a true slot receiver? They don't, but does it really need one? The most time they have two receivers. Jennings is a solid rotation piece. So they could use one. And I've heard corner. I like the way their corners are playing, though. But, yeah, maybe just kind of worried about depth. If somebody goes down, maybe they're like, we might be in trouble here. So I guess that makes sense. So could it be I don't know if it's necessarily going to be a splash move. It could be a depth move. It could be both. It could be neither. We will see with the 49ers. A few more here. Cowboys will likely be quiet at, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, whatever. They were kind of rumored to be buyers. Like, it's just because it's a big name team. Like, everyone wants to talk about them always, but being linked to some receivers. And I definitely heard that they were calling around about corners. Like, they could look to add an outside or a slot corner. But now, based on what we're hearing, is that they're expected to stay quiet. They kind of like their roster. It's just really an execution thing about executing. But yeah, I wouldn't completely rule out looking at corner depth, rotation receivers, or if you can somehow get a steal on a big-time receiver, or depth on the offensive line. I wouldn't completely rule that out. But I was told that that they could definitely be quiet here. So. And another one, just like that, the Texans are expected to be quiet. There was actually a quote from like DeMeco Ryans and company that they like where their roster's at. They really like the roster. They don't really, they want to continue developing. They're ahead of schedule on things. It's a pretty good team right now. They don't really want to disrupt it. So does that 100% mean they're not going to trade? No, but I wouldn't expect it. They're very, very likely actually to be quiet. Some players better than expected. It's a pretty balanced roster. Of course, there's spots where they can develop more, and they will. Spots they can get better, but right now they like where they're at. And then, one more. The Bears apparently not shopping Jalen Johnson, their corner, who had a really good game against the Raiders yesterday. Jeremy Fowler said this one, Johnson's been rumored like crazy, and he even said himself he's wondering if the Bears would trade him and other players just to, kind of reset things or continue on with the rebuild. I forgot the exact quote, but he said it himself. So that was after some of the rumors. So that kind of further, made that more evident that he could be dealt. Didn't guarantee anything, but the Bears are, and this kind of makes sense. So they're not actually out there calling teams like, hey, we're trading him. He's on the block. What are you going to give us? But they are going to listen to offers, and they probably have, and they'll trade him probably for the right piece. But maybe that value went up a little bit because he's playing really good right now. Good corners seem to be somewhat rare. I think Fowler mentioned that as well. So for them to give him up, it might be maybe too much where it comes to if it's worth it for other teams. But they'll listen to offers. But maybe another team. We keep going down the list as we keep getting these teams. Like we thought. And some could be, but the Broncos, the Cardinals, the Giants, the Vikings, the Panthers, the Bears, these are the premium teams that could be crazy sellers. And, there's bound to be a team out of those that makes a deal or two, or maybe three. I'm not counting on three from a team, but some of these teams might be a little more underwhelming, when it comes to making deals at the deadline. So maybe a little less active than rumored, because the rumors were Jalen Johnson, Darnell Mooney. I never really expected Mooney to be dealt, but he still could be. A couple other guys were brought up. I mean, technically they already traded Claypool, so they already traded somebody. So it's not like if they, zero trades or anything like that. But they could be a little less active than people thought. They are coming off a win too, but I do still think they are focused on the future. So that's the latest one I'm hearing. Of course, there's been rumblings about other things, other players, other teams. Either that's old news or I just think it's rumors that I'm not fully buying into, but I enjoyed making this video, just kind of going over the legit rumors, but kind of getting my input, getting a little more what could come of it, getting a little further into it. So, and I thought it was pretty wild that Byard got traded to the Eagles before recording this, because that was definitely going to be mentioned. It was kind of connecting the dots. Wasn't really predicting it, but pretty wild there. So always talking with you guys about this stuff on Twitter, so check us out there. We have our recent biggest winners and losers of Week 7. Check that out. Cannot wait for our Week 8 content. But that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.